In this video, I'm going to redesign the Nissan 350Z, but before we do that, I want to give you some of the backstory and talk about the spec and tech and design of this beautiful Japanese sports car. The Nissan 350Z, also known as the Nissan Fairlady Z in Japan, is a sports coupe produced from 2002 to 2009. It was the fifth generation of the Nissan Z car line, and it was developed to replace the 300ZX, which had been in production all the way since 1984. Following the withdrawal of the Z32 300ZX from the US markets in 1996, Nissan actually attempted to revive the Z name by recreating the popular 240Z the following year. In their spare time, Nissan's North American design team created the modernized 240Z concept, which was introduced to the world in July of 1998. Yukata Katayama, dubbed the father of the Z, which is a very cool nickname to have, revealed the concept sketch to members of the motoring press, the dealers, and some staff. However, the new concept did not impress Yoshihiko Matsuo, the original designer of the 240Z. Still, the modern 240Z concept was made and the design team showed it at the Detroit Motor Show. Unfortunately, while Nissan liked the concept, they weren't crazy about how it was executed. They thought the original 200 horsepower 2.4-liter engine was underpowered and unsuitable for a Z-badged vehicle. They also thought that the design was too retro and not modern enough. A redesign was commissioned, and the new Z concept car was introduced at the 2001 Tokyo Motor Show with a similar overall body shape but a completely new front end. And I have to say, I'm really glad that the original 240Z concept did not make it to the production phase and replace this 300ZX, because honestly, I'm not a fan of that design. Following the motor show, a minor redesign was carried out and the car was fitted with a VQ35DE engine, giving rise to the name 350Z. The design team was led by Shiro Nakamura, who was the chief creative officer at Nissan at the time. The original Datsun 240Z was also a big influence on Nakamura's design, but this car had more modern features and lines than the earlier, more soft concept. The 350Z's main exterior features were a sloping fastback style roofline, a high waistline, and you also had triangular front and rear lights inspired by mosaic bulging fenders that reach to the vehicle's corners and brushed aluminum door handles. The 350Z's interior was made to be both practical and unique, with supportive bucket seats, a 3-spoke sporty steering wheel, and a dashboard that was focused on the driver. The vehicle came with a manual or automatic transmission, and you want to go with a manual here obviously if you're getting a 350Z, and a number of performance improving features including a limited slip differential and larger performance disc brakes. Its power came from the 3.5-liter V6 engine, which produced 287 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque. Not bad in this tiny package. It was available in 2 trim levels. You had the base model, which is called the Enthusiast, and the top-of-the-line Performance trim. A 300 horsepower engine and improved suspension and braking system were both included in the Performance model. So obviously you want to get a Performance with the manual transmission, and you have your ideal 350Z. Nissan dealers in the United States offer the 350Z in 5 different package options. You have the base, Enthusiast, Performance, Touring, and Track. Track models features Brembo brakes, a front air dam. You also have rear spoilers, traction control, 18-inch wheels, cloth seats came standard. However, this option, the Track package, was not available in the US. The 350Z could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour or 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.3 to 5.8 seconds, depending on the model and the transmission and obviously the skill of the driver. The car was updated for the 2007 model year with a new engine replacing the old V6. At 6,800 RPM, Nissan's new engine produced 306 horsepower and 268 pound-feet of torque. The red line was increased to 7,500 RPM, and the hood was redesigned with a bulge reminiscent of the original 240Z, and this wasn't just for looks. It had to be done to accommodate the new engine's raised deck. Nismo, Nissan's motorsport division, also worked its magic on the 350Z. Over the the course of the car's production life, they created 5 different versions or upgrade packages, namely the Nismo R2, the Nismo S2, the Nismo 350Z, the Nismo Type 380 RS, and the Nismo Type 380 RS Competition. Following its discontinuation, the 350Z was replaced by the 370Z, which has more of a soft, bulging shape than the 350Z. I actually prefer the 350. I made a video on that. You can check that out here on the channel, comparing the two designs. And then the 370Z obviously got replaced with the brand new Nissan Z, which I'm a huge fan of as well when it comes to design. Before we jump into the redesign, I want to show you the evolution of the Z lineup. So we're going to go back to the Z32 up here, which is the 300ZX, the second generation of the 300ZX. And then I'm going to pop in the 240Z, and I'm going to let you know which one I think is the best modern interpretation of the 240Z, because all of these are inspired in one way or another from the 240Z. I think the 300ZX looks more like a coupe, more of maybe Americanized coupe, because we have this upswing in the rear end, which definitely takes away from the 240Z line. It's not supposed to be a 240Z, I know that, but they still have the inspiration from the 240Z in pretty much everything, single Z car up until today. And then we have a pretty interesting roofline here with this curvature right here that doesn't really come back in any other Z car, so it was unique for the 300. And then going out to the 350Z, the one we're gonna redesign today, I love this design. I think it looks modern still today, because we have, look at this roofline, and then how it goes in to the graphics of the taillight in the same line. So this creates, you have an intersection of lines right here, and I think that's beautifully done. And also that we have the same curvature of the body follows the curvature of the headlight in the front end. And look at the overhangs here, how much shorter it got, both in the front and in the rear of these two generations, from the 300ZX up and 350Z. This turned into a much more tight looking design, I think, more sporty because of the shorter overhangs and also the larger wheels. And overall the graphics, I'm a huge fan of how this little dip in the body down here, this crease, creates almost a foundation for the side view, side graphics to rest upon, and this is something I want to play with in the redesign later on. Now going on to the 370Z down here, as you can see, it's the same kind of philosophy as the 350Z, but it got a lot more swollen. It looks like a swollen 350Z, but at the same time you have the greenhouse here, for example, being a lot sharper. So the greenhouse is more in line with the 240Z, and you also have this typical Nissan sharp corner up here that you have in the GTR as well, and you have this line now going straight down. Yes, we do have a little wing in the rear, but if we remove the wing, it's gonna be a typical 240Z line, a little bit rounded in the rear end. But I do like this as well. If I were to choose between these two, definitely every day I'm gonna pick the 350Z based on the design. I think that's a more beautiful and timeless looking design. Now going back to the brand new Nissan Z, which I had the privilege of testing for 1 week when I lived in Florida. It was so much fun to drive this car, and just walking out every day and looking at the driveway, you see a yellow Nissan Z there. It just looks good. It has the correct proportions for a small Japanese sports car. And look at just how much is inspired by the 240Z in this car. The underpinnings of the new Nissan Z is actually a 370Z. You can definitely tell that when you sit in the interior, but the styling looks so much better in my opinion. Gone are these rounded soft curvatures everywhere. Now we have more structured looking design, and this shoulder line that dips down, then comes back up here, and then you have another line going up in the lower part right here, which I think looks really cool. And now if we pop in the 240Z, this is where you can definitely see which one of these, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me at least, which one is the better modernization of the 240Z, even though, as I said, the 300ZX wasn't really intended to be a modernization of the 240Z, but the new one, the Nissan Z, definitely has a lot of lines going back to the original, which I absolutely love. If I were to pick one of these cars, it's definitely gonna be the original. I have to go with the 240Z. I still think today it's one of the most beautiful looking cars ever made, and you know, you can buy a 250 GTO Ferrari for, I don't know, $20 million. You can get a 240Z for 30 in a really good condition, and in my opinion the styling and the beauty in both of these cars are very, very similar. That's how good of a car design I think the 240Z is. So now let's jump into the redesign. Let me walk you through what's gonna happen here in this redesign that we're gonna do of the 350Z. I like to keep, as always, the proportions of the original car. Maybe change a little bit in the greenhouse. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that yet, but I want to play around with some graphics, and the graphics are what's gonna transform this 350 into a modernized looking car. So I'm gonna take the front lower intake from the Nissan Z, and I'm gonna apply it here. Yes, the square box. I'm actually gonna take that and put it into this car, this design, because I think it has a good connection to the original 240Z. I don't necessarily think it looks bad on the new Nissan Z. I think they could have maybe implement that specific element a little better with the line flow in the front end, but the element itself looks good. I think it looks great to have an opening that is just a rectangle in the front end. It looks functional, and it also looks very sporty and aggressive at the same time. But to complement this opening that we have in this big massive mouth in the front end, I want to have some openings on the side, so we're not just looking at this big black rectangle in the lower section of the car. I want this to be more of connecting graphics in the front end. So I'm gonna take the front end headlights of the GTR 50, which is an Ital Design special version of the Nissan GTR. I think they made a limited run. I can't remember exactly how many they made. Cost about, I guess, $1 million or something like that. I'm gonna take the headlights of that car and redesign those headlights to better suit this design that we have right here. And then I'm gonna extend the black graphic that we have in those headlights. I'm gonna extend that all the way down to the bottom of the front end, and in addition to that, I want to create a base for this front end by adding a pretty subtle front lip in the lower part of this redesign to kind of have a foundation for all the graphics that's going to happen on top of this. And then at the side view, of course, if we're going to have a front splitter, a front lip, we need to have a side skirt as well. So I'm adding a side skirt that has the same kind of styling like we have in the front end, and this is also from the GTR 50 Nissan, and I think it suits this design. For the wheels, I'm gonna take the Nissan Z wheels, the new Nissan Z. I think they look fantastic. They're very simplistic in its design. I think black wheels, usually I'm not a fan of black wheels. The reason being, I like to see the design of the spokes clearly and the design of the wheel clearly. I can't really do that when we have black wheels. It kind of hides the shape, and sometimes when you're rolling at speed, it kind of looks like it's just a black hole in where the wheels are supposed to be when you have black wheels. But since we have a lot of black graphics in the front and in contrast with the silver color that we have on the car, I think black wheels in this case will look really, really good. I'm also gonna take the side mirrors from the new Nissan Z, apply it onto this car to make it look a little more modern. And we have the side lines that I talked about when we looked at the lineup, the generations. I'm gonna have a line that cuts into the side of this car from the A-pillar going down and wraps around the Z logo that we have on the side in the front fender, and then down into the door, and then coming back with a chamfer up through halfway up to the shoulder line. I think that will look really good. It almost looks like a sort of integrated wide body kit when I added that onto the car. I'm gonna remove the two lines that we have on the hood because I think those make this car look very, very dated, and instead add some new, more modern, soft lines that points into the new to the Nissan logo in the front end. And that's my redesign of the Nissan 350Z. Let me know what you think about this car, and if you like these kind of videos, you might want to check out this video up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.